Part 27. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 261. Wei Yuxian thought for a moment and said, "Who knows where you brought those two children from, but I am very compassionate and will reluctantly be the mother of those two children first, but you are not with me yet." She really likes those two children. So spicy and cute, so soft and cute. Even if it's not her child, she still likes it. There are also two babies, Andy and Ori, who are equally cute. I don't know why she likes children so much, she likes them from the bottom of her heart. Fu Xuanyi clasped his hands on his chest and asked, "What should I do?" Guai has made up his mind to disown me, right? You told me you can't tell me to be good, Wei Yuxian said fiercely, like a fierce little kitten. Fu Xuanyi only felt that she was even cuter when he saw her. No harm at all. But he still followed her and said, okay, I won't call you anymore, then what should I call you?" Wei Yuxian breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Mr. Fu, just call me Miss Wei." As soon as she heard this man tell her to be good, her face felt hot and she was a little shy. This is not okay, she has to take the initiative, and she cannot be led by this man. Want to be with her? Sure. If you want to chase her hard. When she sees his sincerity and confirms that he is not a scumbag, she will stay with him. Hey, I'm so smart. Fu Xuanyi wanted to laugh, from the bottom of his heart. He was so obedient that even Mr. Fu called him on. This is to firmly deny the relationship with him. Can't we call her Eucalyptus, he discussed with her. If you can't call her Guai, you can call her Eucalyptus. It's her nickname, and it means she's more intimate. Wei Yuxian shook her head and said firmly, "No, this is my nickname. Our relationship is not that close yet. Mr. Fu, you can only call me Miss Wei." Fu Xuanyi wanted to laugh even more. He couldn't hide the smile in his eyes. He stretched out his big hand and quickly took the person into his arms. He lowered his head and said, "Miss Wei, come with me." Wei Yuxian struggled hurriedly to get out of his arms and said, "Mr. Fu, please let go of me. You are acting hooligan. What if I insist on not letting go? So what if I'm obedient?" This title was called out again unconsciously. After shouting for so long, how can it be said that it can be changed? Wei Yuxian was going crazy in her heart. She screamed several times and said, "Hurry up and let me go. If you don't let me go, I'm going to call someone. I have 4 brothers, 1 younger brother, 2 uncles, and 1 father." She told everyone she thought of, hoping to shock Fu Xuanyi. Fu Xuanyi heard this, but he was not afraid at all. He said, "Even if you scream and break your throat, no one will come to save you." He looked at the person in his arms, those lips were attractive, his Adam's apple rolled, his head lowered, and he kissed her lips. Wei Yuxian was extremely panicked. This man didn't seem to be afraid. How to do? He even kissed himself. Is he going to use force on himself? He was so strong and tall, so how could she, a thin little girl, beat him? In a hurry, Wei Yuxian's tears fell, she sniffed and cried wow. When she cried, Fu Xuanyi was stunned. He could only let go of the person in his arms and stopped forcing her. He gently wiped her tears and said, "Don't cry, I was wrong." Wei Yuxian took this opportunity to move her butt back and distance herself from him, maintaining a distance she thought was safe, and still cried. Fu Xuanyi was most afraid of her tears, both before and now. He said that he would never make his baby cry again, except in bed, but now, the person who made his baby cry was actually himself. I can only say nice things to coax people, be good, Miss Wei, stop crying. I won't force you anymore. It's all my fault. He originally wanted to call her good, but when he remembered what she just said, he abruptly changed the title to Ms. Wei as she emphasized. If this keeps Guai from crying, then he will bark. Wei Yuxian made a request to him, then you should leave my bed now, immediately, take your pillow with you, and you are not allowed to sleep in my room in the future. How could Fu Xuanyi dare to disobey her? He obediently picked up the pillow, stood up and stood beside the bed, and said, "Okay, I will never step into Miss Wei's room without Miss Wei's permission in the future." Wei Yuxian was satisfied, her tears slowly came away, and she asked, "Do you like me?" Fu Xuanyi nodded and did not deny it. "You want to be with me?" Wei Yuxian asked again. Fu Xuanyi nodded again. "Then you have to chase me hard. I'm very difficult to chase." "Did you hear that?" Wei Yuxian said, "I'm not someone who just hangs out with others. If you dare to force me, I'll let you go. My dad beats you." When it comes to the last sentence, she has the confidence, because she has a father who loves her very much, and her uncles and brothers also love her very much. The relatives behind her are her greatest confidence. Okay, Fu Xuanyi agreed to her. Wei Yuxian stopped crying completely and wiped away the tears on her face. She said, "It's okay. You can think about how to chase me. Okay, go back to your room." Fu Xuanyi sighed in his heart, hugged his pillow, walked out of Wei Yuxian's room, and returned to the room that originally belonged to him. After Fu Xuanyi left, Wei Yuxian showed a victorious smile and got up happily. She won the first round against Fu Xuanyi. After washing, she went downstairs and went to the dining table. The first thing she did was sit down next to her father and told him happily, "Dad, I have grown up. I am not 6 years old anymore, I am 21 years old." The tone is very happy. Everyone at the table was stunned when they heard her words, and the air temporarily solidified. It was only when Fu Xuanyi pulled out a chair and sat down that they came back to their senses, and each one of them looked at her with strange eyes. Third brother Basil asked, "Sister, do you still remember who I am?" Wei Yuxian glanced at him and said confidently, "You are the third brother." Then, she called a circle of people present. When she called Fu's mother, she paused and called aunt instead of mother. Lin Chengyuan went back the day before yesterday. He had something to do with his company back home, so he just took time out to see Wei Yuxian. After looking at the people, he went back without staying long. The last person she called was Fu Xuanyi. Under everyone's gaze, everyone only heard her say 3 words, "Mr. Fu." What an unfamiliar title. Silence, nothing but silence is still silence. Everyone looked at Fu's mother and Fu Xuanyi and didn't know what to say for a moment. Warm reminder, if you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 262. Their family doesn't recognize Fu Xuanyi as her husband. You don't recognize your mother, your in-laws, either. Fu's mother cast her eyes on Fu Xuanyi and asked him with her eyes, "What's going on?" Fu Xuanyi pretended not to see his mother's eyes and quietly turned his head to the side. Seeing that her son was not going to answer, Fu's mother turned her attention to Wei Yuxian again and asked, "Eucalyptus, don't you remember Mom?" Wei Yuxian said with some embarrassment, "Auntie, that was because I was ignorant and screamed randomly when I was a child. I'm not with Mr. Fu yet, so I can't call you Mom anymore." Everyone finally understood that their children had grown up and become smarter, and would not be deceived so easily. This can actually be considered a good thing. At least, their family members have a strong sense of prevention and will not be coaxed by a few words from a man. When Fu's mother heard this, she sighed in her heart, smiled on her face, and said, "It's okay, you can call me whatever you want." When Yuxian regains her memory in the future, she will still have a chance to hear Yuxian call her mother. Now, whatever makes Yuxian happy, let her do whatever she wants. It's just a title, it doesn't matter. Wei Qiuwen touched her head happily and said, our eucalyptus has finally grown up, come on, we need to eat more when we grow up. He gave Wei Yuxian some of her favorite dumplings and stuffed warm soy milk into her hand. Wei Yuxian sweetly said thank you, Dad, and ate breakfast happily. Everyone is happy about her growing up. As eucalyptus grows up, is it still far away from the day when she can regain her memory? Although they didn't know why the eucalyptus grew up overnight, it didn't affect their happiness. Grandma also gave her food several times, all of which were her favorites, and said, eat more eucalyptus. Only when you are full can you have strength. Well, thank you, Grandma. You're welcome. Eat more eucalyptus. After breakfast, fed lovingly by her family, Wei Yuxian sat on the sofa for a long time with her belly full. After her stomach recovered, Wei Yuxian wanted to take a walk in the yard. She felt her stomach was still full and walking made it smoother. Because Wei Yuxian has grown up today, she is under special circumstances and is still very attached to her father, so Wei Qiuwen did not go to work in the company today. Wei Yuxian held her father in one hand and her grandma in the other, walking in the yard with the two elders. Fu Xuanyi followed them silently without making a sound. Wei Yuxian walked for a few minutes before she noticed someone was following behind her. She turned around and asked, Mr. Fu, are you taking a walk too? Fu Xuanyi wanted to say that he was not here for a walk, he just wanted to follow her and didn't want her to leave his sight. But later, he still said huh and said that he was here for a walk. Wei Yuxian said oh, turned her head back, and started chatting with her father, Dad, do you know where I went to college? Seeing the proud look on her face, Wei Qiuwen pretended not to know and asked, what school do we go to? Wei Yuxian said proudly, I am studying at Kyoto University of Finance and Economics. Dad, am I very powerful? Wei Qiuwen and his grandma looked surprised and said, it's amazing. Our family is really amazing. My father has heard of this school, and it's amazing. Grandma also said, our family is the best. How many people can't get into this school? Wei Yuxian smiled broadly and became even happier, saying, no, I'm just a little bit awesome. Then, she thought of another question, Dad, has my school started? Wei Qiuwen nodded and said, yes, not long after school started, I got sick. My father asked for leave for me. I took good care of myself at home. When we get better, we can go to school again. Grandma, yes, health is the most important thing. When our baby is in good health, it won't be too late to go to school. Wei Yuxian blinked a few times and said, Dad, Grandma, my health has recovered. I just lost my memory. It's nothing serious. I still remember what I learned from school. I want to go to school. I want to take classes with my classmates. Is that okay? Wei Qiuwen hesitated, but is there really nothing wrong with your body? Wei Yuxian jumped on the spot twice and Geo a few more times to show that she was healthy and said, Dad, look, I am very healthy. Amnesia will not affect my study. The common sense of life and all the knowledge she has learned are all in her mind, so there won't be any problems. Wei Qiuwen and his mother looked at each other, and the latter nodded slightly. If Eucalyptus wants to go to school, let her go. Then send more people around her to protect her, and there won't be any big problem. Grandma said, don't you also want to explore the Eastern market recently? It would be a good idea to take Eucalyptus back to study. Wei Qiuwen nodded and answered Wei Yuxian, okay, then Dad will take the Eucalyptus back to college. Wei Yuxian happily jumped on the spot twice more and said, thank you, Dad. Thank you, Grandma. Wei Qiuwen also smiled and asked, when do you want to go back to school? Do you want to stay here for a while? Wei Yuxian said expectantly, of course the sooner the better, I don't want to miss so many courses. Okay, then just listen to me, Dad will make some arrangements, and then we'll set off. Wei Qiuowen said, our family is so smart, even if they miss a few lessons, they can make up for it quickly. Grandma also praised her a few words and told her not to worry about studying. Even if she really couldn't keep up, they could hire a tutor to come back and make up for her. With her father and grandma, Wei Yuxian suddenly stopped worrying about anything and began to look forward to the days when she would go back to school in the East. Wei Yuxian was going back to the East, and so were Fu Xuanyi, Fu's mother, and their 2 babies. After Wei Qiuowen decided on the date, they began to make preparations. This is also a big progress. Yuxian is finally going back to the land where she has lived for more than 20 years. Everything there is familiar to her. Maybe those familiar places can awaken her memory faster. That night, Wei Qiuowen announced at the dinner table that he would take Wei Yuxian back to school in the East. Grandma also said that she would go with her. She was originally from the East. After marrying the old man, she rarely went back to the East. Over the years, she didn't know what the East had developed into. I heard people say that the East today has changed a lot and is so colorful that it is completely different from what it was a few decades ago. After hearing this, several brothers wanted to go with them, but they were natives of country E, this was their roots, and the company also needed them to manage, so even if they wanted to follow, they couldn't. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 263. Especially the second brother and the fourth brother, who are already married and have children, and have families, so it is even less possible for them to bring their families with them. But the elder brother's mind became active. He felt that he still had a little hope. He is not married yet, and he has a younger brother who serves his parents, so it is okay to go alone. Besides, how could it be so easy to open up the Eastern market? It would be too hard for third uncle to go there alone. Grandma also went with her. Third uncle had to take care of his sister and grandma, as well as manage a new company. How could he be so busy? Therefore, in order to be considerate of his third uncle and to take good care of his grandma, it was okay for him to follow him. After thinking clearly, Kylie said, "Father, I want to go to the East with my third uncle." Hebrew glanced at him and asked, "Why are you joining in the fun? Just stay there and don't run around." Kylie explained all the reasons he had just thought of. "Father, I did not make a rash decision, I thought about it. It will not be easy for my third uncle to develop the market in the East alone. My grandma and sister also need my uncle's care. I'm afraid that Uncle San will be too busy." When he said this, everyone began to think. Indeed, what Kylie said makes sense. It would be too difficult for the third child to go to the East alone. The third child has not paid much attention to the company's affairs over the years. He only started to get started recently and is still a bit unfamiliar with this aspect. But it would be much easier if Kylie was sent to assist him. After thinking clearly, Hebrew said, "Then Kylie will go with you. After you go there, you must try your best to help your third uncle and take good care of your grandma and sister. Do you know?" Kylie was so excited that the smile on his face became even brighter and he said, "I know, Father. I will definitely take good care of my grandma and sister." After Kylie finished speaking, he went back to his room to pack his things without wasting any time. La 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 la, he is going to the East with his sister. He can always see his sister from now on. When Donald saw his brother's happy back, he couldn't help but think deeply. After observing the expressions of his family members, he cleared his throat and said, "Father, I also want to go to the East with you." The second uncle glanced at this good son, said and said, "Where are you going? You don't have to go to school anymore? What can you do there? Your eldest brother is going to help your third uncle, you just went there, it will cause trouble to your third uncle, why do you have the nerve to say it?" The second aunt also said, "It's just that I haven't learned enough yet, so don't go and cause trouble to your third uncle. When you finish school, you can go wherever you want." Donald let out an aggrieved "oh," looked at his sister sadly, and said, "Sister, don't worry, after I finish college, I will definitely go back to play with my sister." Wei Yuxian smiled at him and said, "Brother, you can come and play with me during the holidays." She glanced at her family, scanned the circle carefully, and then discovered that their family were all handsome and beautiful, and they all had good looks. Her brothers and uncles are all talented people. My aunts and sisters-in-law are also very handsome. Even the two babies Andy and Ori can tell that they will be handsome boys in the future. Wei Yuxian is a perfect face controller. When she saw that her whole family looked so handsome, she felt like her. After reading it, I couldn't hold my mouth shut. As soon as the words came out, Donald's mood instantly improved a lot, and he said, "I understand, sister, can I take my friends with me when the time comes? My friends have always wanted to see you, sister." He sent his sister's photos to his friends. Everyone who saw his sister's photos marveled at her beauty and wanted to make friends with her. "Of course you can. My sister will take you to play when the time comes." Donald said wow twice and was already looking forward to the holiday. Seeing how happy he was, Wei Yuxian couldn't bear to say the next words, but after thinking about it, she decided to say it. "Brother, before you and your friends go, you can learn some Eastern languages." As soon as the words came out, the smile on Donald's face immediately froze. He looked at his sister and blinked a few times and asked, "Can I not learn?" When he was a child, he also tried to learn Eastern languages. Because his grandma was from Oriental, he was curious and followed him to learn it for a while. The first few words he learned were easy to learn, such as hello, dad, mom, etc. But as he went on, he realized that he couldn't learn them at all. The following stuff is too difficult. One word can express too many meanings, with different tones and different meanings. It made him collapse. So for all these years, he had no idea of learning an Eastern language again. But now, my sister actually said that he should learn an Eastern language. Ah! Why is it so difficult to go to the East with my sister? Wei Yuxian also saw the bitterness on his face and said, "Brother, you don't want to understand nothing when you get there, do you? I won't be your translator anytime and anywhere." Donald turned his attention to Grandma for help, looking pitiful. His sister was unwilling to translate for him, and his grandma also spoke Eastern languages. As long as he stays with Grandma, he won't have to worry about no one to translate. Grandma also said at this time, "I think you should learn some Eastern languages. Kylie knows it. You should also learn some. It would be good if you can learn a little." Donald had no hope at all and could only say, "Then father will find a teacher for me tomorrow and I will start learning from tomorrow." He must learn Eastern languages. He must go to the East with his sister. And his few friends cannot be let go, and they must learn Eastern languages with him. If you can't learn it, you are not allowed to see his sister. Being happy alone is not as good as being happy among others. He is really smart. Thinking of this, Donald felt much better. At least, he was not suffering alone, but several people were suffering with him. After dinner, Wei Yuxian and her grandma took a walk in the yard to eat. She was pushing a stroller with two babies, Shishi and Zhizi, in it. Fu Xuanyi was still following them, saying nothing, staring at the back in front of them. Wei Yuxian walked for a while, looked back, saw it was him, and said, "Mr. Fu, why are you following me? Don't you have anything of your own to do?" Fu Xuanyi's expression remained unchanged and he said, "Take a walk." Wei Yuxian didn't believe his nonsense. She snorted and turned to her grandma. "Grandma, he must be uneasy and well-intentioned about me. He just wants to pursue me." Grandma smiled and said, "Our little princess is so beautiful, there are many people who like you." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 264. After saying that, Grandma turned around and glanced at Fu Xuanyi behind her, and asked, "Then do we like him?" To be honest, they were also worried about Fu Xuanyi. Their family members woke up and said that they would not recognize people if they didn't recognize them, and they had wronged the Fu family boy. The Fu family boy is sincere about his family, and everyone can see it. Leaving this big company alone in the East and running over to accompany him, this is enough to show that his heart for him is true. And his behavior these days, how kind he is to me, is really painful to me. Besides, this is Shishi and Zizi's father, and they still hope that the family will not be separated. Wei Yuxian cleared her throat and said, "Whether you like him or not depends on his performance. I won't be easily caught. It's not that easy to chase her. You have to go through a severe test before you can be with her. I heard that their scumbags had many tricks up their sleeves and could coax people into being stunned." The little girl was fascinated to death and soon let go. The result after this, of course, was that the scumbag got tired of playing with him, and the little girl was heartbroken. She doesn't want this, she doesn't want to be hurt by a scumbag. Grandma sighed for Fu Xuanyi silently in her heart, turned back, and shook her head gently at him. No one thought that one day, being too handsome would be a sin. "Grandma, why are you always looking back at him?" Wei Yuxian became wary and turned to glare at him. Did this guy secretly bribe Grandma? Want Grandma to put in a good word for him? Snort. "I didn't expect that you have so many tricks up your sleeves, even Grandma wants to bribe you." Grandma denied, "No, I didn't look back at him, but there was a flower that bloomed very beautifully just now, so I looked back." "Which flower is so beautiful?" Wei Yuxian turned around to search. Grandma took her back a few steps, pointed to the flower and said, "That's it. Isn't it beautiful? It's so cold, and it's not easy for it to grow so well." Wei Yuxian believed her grandma's words and felt relieved. Fortunately, Grandma was not bribed by him, and Grandma still liked her the most. There were not many days left at the Jones house, and Wei Qiuan arranged to go to the East in 3 days. Wei Yuxian cherished the days she stayed here and the time she spent with her family. The day before she left, she went to the mall with her grandma to buy gifts for her family. Everyone in the family bought a copy, even Andy and Ori. Finally, the time came for the day of separation. Wei Yuxian got up early in the morning. Although it was still several hours before boarding the plane, she couldn't fall asleep. When she thought of her brothers and uncles being separated today, she felt very reluctant to part with them. She got up so early and had nothing to do. When she was bored, she thought about making breakfast for her family. She entered the kitchen. The chefs had just gone to work and were preparing today's breakfast. When the head chef saw her coming in, he was a little panicked and asked, "Why did Miss Yu get up so early? Are you hungry? I will prepare a breakfast for Miss Yu now." As soon as his words came out, his chef started to act smartly, thinking of making a simple breakfast first for Miss Eucalyptus to fill her stomach. In today's Jones family, apart from the old lady, the one with the highest status is Miss Eucalyptus, and no one dares to neglect her. Wei Yuxian stopped the chef and said, "No, I came to the kitchen to make breakfast. You all can go out and I can cook it myself." The head chef gave the other chefs a look and told them to go out first while he stayed alone. "Miss Eucalyptus, let me help you. What would you like to make for breakfast?" Wei Yuxian thought about the size of her family. There were more than a dozen people in total, and there was quite a lot of breakfast to make, so she agreed to let the chef stay and help. The two of them were busy in the kitchen. Wei Yuxian had not been in the kitchen for a long time, and her movements were not unfamiliar, and she was still as smooth as ever. Not to mention the head chef, who spends time in the kitchen working with food every day and is a good cook. The two of them worked for almost an hour, and finally prepared all the breakfasts for the family, including Western and Chinese breakfasts, with a wide variety. After preparing breakfast, Wei Yuxian and the chef and servants rolled out the dining cart and put all the food on the dining table. The brothers who had been looking for Wei Yuxian all morning were a little surprised when they saw her coming out of the kitchen. Kylie couldn't close his mouth and asked, "Sister, did you do all this?" "Donald, sister, you are so awesome." Wei Yuxian chuckled and said, "The chef and I made this together. I couldn't sleep in the morning, so I got up. I had nothing to do, so I just wanted to make breakfast for everyone." Third brother Basil rubbed his hands, picked up the tableware and said, "Let me see how the breakfast made by my sister is." Grandma praised her and said, "Our family is really good. These breakfasts are delicious at first sight. Thank you for your hard work." Wei Qiuwen stood up, pressed the great hero on the chair and sat down, and said, "Hurry up and sit down. You must be starving after working all morning. Eat quickly, don't starve your stomach." Wei Yuxian said and took a bite of the porridge her uncle served her. She cooked it herself and it tasted delicious. Others also started eating their breakfast. As soon as they took a bite, they found that the taste was almost the same as what the chefs had made. It was just as delicious. "Hebrew, the eucalyptus ones are so delicious. I want to eat more today. Grandma, this is the first time I have breakfast made of eucalyptus. I didn't expect it to be so delicious. Our eucalyptus is indeed the best. Brothers, ouch. It's delicious. The breakfast made by my sister is delicious. Wei Qiuwen, thank you for your hard work. Dad likes it very much. Fu's mother, Auntie also likes to eat it." Everyone was full of praise for the breakfast she cooked. Wei Yuxian was so happy that her lips almost reached her temples. "As long as everyone likes to eat it, I will make it for everyone to eat if I have the opportunity in the future." She took another mouthful of porridge and said that most of the porridge in the bowl was already gone. After a breakfast, the whole family was very satisfied and their bellies were full. Because Wei Yuxian was going back to the east today, no one at home went to work, but were waiting to see them off. The company's affairs can't be finished no matter what, and it's okay if they don't go to work for a day. Nothing was more important than their sister. There were still 2 hours before boarding the plane, so Wei Yuxian could only stay at home for an hour at most. The family members took her to sit in the living room and chat, not to waste the last time. The eldest aunt held her hand and said, "Eucalyptus, if someone bullies you when you return to the east, you can tell your elder brother, do you know?" After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 265. Wei Yuxian nodded to show that she understood, and said, "Auntie, don't worry, no one will bully me. If someone bullies me, I will be the first to tell the elder brother. If the elder brother can't solve it, I will let Dad solve it. Okay, just remember, our family can't be bullied by others." After the eldest aunt told Wei Yuxian, she turned around and told Kylie again. "If you can't take good care of your sister, you don't have to go to the east. Come back and manage the company with your father. I'll let Donald go." Kylie looked at his double-standard mother, smiled helplessly, and said, "I understand, mother. I promise you once again that I will take good care of my sister." Hebrew patted Wei Qiuwen on the shoulder and said, "And, if you find it hard, tell Kylie to work more. Don't let him idle around all day." The corner of Kylie's mouth twitched and he said, "Father, I take my work very seriously and I don't idle around." Hebrew glanced at him and said, "I'm not talking to you, I'm talking to Anne." Facing his father who had the same double standards, Kylie turned his head to the side silently and sighed. Wei Kuowen smiled slightly and said, "Okay, big brother, I won't make Kylie's life too easy. If you have anything to do, just tell him hard. He's familiar with all of this." Wei Kuowen nodded and started chatting with Hebrew. The second aunt held her grandson Ula in her arms. She shook her arm from time to time and said, "Eucalyptus, if you miss us, just give us a video call. I heard that the communication tools in the East are very developed." Wei Yuxian nodded obediently. "I understand, second aunt, I will call you and send you messages often. Don't miss me too much." The family took the time to chat, and when it was time to set off, the whole family got in the car and set off for the airport. On the way there, they didn't want to waste time talking to Wei Yuxian. By the end of the morning, Wei Yuxian was almost talking about smoking. She drank several glasses of water before her throat felt so uncomfortable. At the time of separation, the sadness of separation enveloped the Jones family, and everyone was not in a good mood. The eldest aunt and the second aunt even secretly wiped away their tears, followed the custom learned from the East, and secretly gave Wei Yuxian red envelopes. Wei Yuxian put the red envelope into her pocket and gave each of them a hug. No matter how reluctant she was to part with them, they had to separate after all. Wei Yuxian felt a little depressed and waved goodbye to her family members over there. When the time came, Wei Yuxian followed her grandma and father onto the Jones family's private jet, preparing to take off. This journey lasted more than 20 hours, almost a day, and it took a long time to fly to the east. On the plane, whether intentionally or not, the person sitting next to Wei Yuxian was Fu Xuanyi. Wei Yuxian wanted to change seats. She felt uncomfortable sitting next to Fu Xuanyi, but when she took a look at the seats in the plane, they were all full of people, so she could only sit where she was. Fu Xuanyi put her hand on the handle and said, "Miss Wei, I am not a savage beast." Wei Yuxian was startled. She pulled her hand back suddenly, hid it behind her back, frowned and said, "Men and women cannot kiss each other." Fu Xuanyi looked at her, was silent for a while, and said helplessly, "I miss the days when I held hands with her. It seems that the guai in childhood is easier to deceive. You can hold hands with her whenever you want, and you can even sleep with her. It doesn't work now." Guai's reaction was so intense that I couldn't even touch it with my hands. What should I do? When will Guai recognize him? How should he pursue Guai? Wei Yuxian turned her body to the side, closed her eyes and slept, pretending that the person behind her didn't exist. Fu Xuanyi asked the flight attendant to bring a blanket, gently covered Wei Yuxian, and said, "Go to sleep." Wei Yuxian's body stiffened for a moment. After noticing his hand leaving, she relaxed and whispered, "Thank you. It seems that this man is quite gentle, at least he cares about her." Just as she was thinking this, Wei Yuxian interrupted her thoughts. "No, no, no. Scumbags are all like this, Wei Yuxian, you can't be deceived by his appearance, you can't be fooled by him." I'm so smart." Wei Yuxian closed her eyes for a while and found that she couldn't sleep and was just lying there bored. She took out her phone, connected to Wi-Fi, opened the browser, and searched. The top 10 behaviors of a scumbag. How to identify a scumbag. Girls, beware, anyone who does the following must be a scumbag. She was very excited to see it, and felt that what they were saying made sense. While watching, I was thinking about Fu Xuanyi's performance and wanted to see if there was any behavior in him that could be related to being a scumbag. After thinking about it for a while, I really found that several of his behaviors were consistent with what others said. As the little guy watched, the blanket on his body slipped a little. If he didn't lift it up, he would probably fall to the ground. But Wei Yuxian's mind was entirely on her mobile phone at the moment, and she couldn't care about the blanket at all. After Fu Xuanyi saw it, he lifted it up for her and covered it again. By the way, he also saw the content she was browsing on her phone. Personal experience of being deceived by a scumbag, a bloody lesson. Sisters, look over here. He paused, not knowing what to say. Wei Yuxian noticed his movement, put her phone away suddenly, lifted the blanket herself, and said, "Mr. Fu, please keep your distance from me." Fu Xuanyi said oh, took his hand back and said nothing. He was thinking about what he just saw. So, why does Guai Guai always think that he is a scumbag? Does he look like a scumbag? Fu Xuanyi had doubts about his face. People used to say that he looked like an ascetic and had nothing to do with a scumbag. So why did Guai Guai have such a wrong idea? Fu Xuanyi couldn't understand, so he simply stopped thinking about it. Wei Yuxian was silent for a while, but didn't hear any movement over there. She quietly opened her eyes and took a look. When she saw that the man had calmed down, she breathed a sigh of relief and continued to look. I watched like this for more than an hour. When lunchtime came, the flight attendants delivered lunch to everyone. Wei Yuxian was still watching, fascinated. Before, she was looking at how to identify a scumbag, but now she is looking at the real experiences of netizens. Every story made her very angry. I really want to rush up to that scumbag and beat them up. How could the innocent Miss Wei know that there are so many real experiences in this world? Even if there were, they would keep them to themselves and would not speak out. Most of what she saw were made up by netizens. While eating lunch and watching, Wei Yuxian was so angry that she didn't even take 2 bites of lunch. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 266. She didn't know how long she had been reading, but Wei Yuxian felt sleepy. She forced herself to read the last story, then put down her phone and closed her eyes to sleep. When Fu Xuanyi saw her sleeping, he lifted a blanket for her and put his hands back under the quilt. After doing this, he also felt a little sleepy, folded his hands on his chest, closed his eyes and went to sleep. More than 20 hours sounds like a long time, and it feels like a long time too. When the plane landed at Kyoto airport, it was approaching evening in the east. Wei Yuxian stretched, and finally a smile appeared on her gloomy expression. She stood up and rubbed her somewhat weak waist. She quietly avoided Fu Xuanyi and left him. Then she quickly ran to her grandma, grabbed her arm, and sweetly called Grandma. Grandma clapped her hand and asked, "Are you tired?" Wei Yuxian pursed her lips and said, "I'm tired. I want to have a good sleep after getting off the plane." Okay, let our eucalyptus have a good sleep." After getting off the plane, Wei Yuxian followed her grandma, holding her hand tightly for fear that she would get lost. The airport was so big that she was really afraid that she would get lost. But if you follow the adults, there is no need to be afraid. The adults will never get lost. The airport is very big, so there are naturally a lot of people there, but don't worry, Wei Yuxian and the others are using the VIP channel, so there are fewer people here. The people who came to pick them up were Fufu, Lu Chengxiao, and Guan Jinyue. After meeting, they all greeted each other and got in the car without wasting time. It's almost dinner time now, so getting in the car earlier will help you get back to eat earlier. Wei Yuxian touched her belly. She was quite hungry. Although she had eaten several meals on the plane, the food on the plane was never so delicious. More than half an hour later, the car drove into the Fu mansion. Wei Yuxian looked at the mansion and felt that it looked familiar, but when she was asked to think about it, she couldn't remember anything that looked familiar. Maybe this is where she lived before she lost her memory. She looked at the flowers, plants, and trees outside seriously, not missing any place, wanting to see more and remember more. In fact, she also hopes that she can recover her memory quickly, because she always feels that she has forgotten some important people and things. The car stopped in front of the villa. Wei Yuxian followed her grandma out of the car and asked, "Grandma, whose house is this? Are we all going to live here in the future?" Grandma said, "This is Mr. Fu's home. Your uncle and Mr. Fu are friends. We have just come here and have not purchased anything. We will live here first." Wei Yuxian nodded and said "Oh," indicating that she understood. This was the result of discussions between the two families, and they asked Wei Yuxian to come back and live here to see if it could bring back more memories for her. Wei Qiuan and others will also temporarily live here with Wei Yuxian to give her a sense of security, and then move out when the time is right. Aunt Fu brought a group of servants to welcome them back. When calling someone, she did not call Madam, but Miss Wei, as the master had given instructions. After getting to the dining table, Wei Yuxian ate a hearty meal and began to feel sleepy soon after eating. Aunt Fu took her to the room where she and Fu Xuanyi used to be. Fu Xuanyi moved to the room next door. Wei Yuxian sat down on the big bed and looked at the room, the feeling of familiarity becoming more and more obvious. This bed, this table, and the furnishings in the room all seemed so familiar, but her mind was useless and she couldn't think of anything. She tried to let herself think about it, but when she thought about it, her head started to hurt. She covered her head, enduring the pain, and wanted to think more. Unexpectedly, several scenes flashed through her mind, right in this room. In the picture, she was sitting on the bed, and there was another person sitting beside the bed, a man, holding a jar of something in his hand, which seemed to be pregnancy oil. She still wanted to look at the man's face, but before she could think of it, her head hurt so much that she broke into a cold sweat. She had a splitting headache. She covered her head and tears fell from her eyes. She didn't dare to think about it anymore. After sitting quietly for a while, the headache dissipated. She looked at the bed with a flash of confusion. So she did live here before. Then who is that man? There is also pregnancy oil. Isn't that only used by pregnant people? Why is she using pregnancy oil? Are Shishi and Zhizi really her children? Is that man Fu Xuanyi? Wei Yuxian thought about the scene just now and compared the man in the scene with Fu Xuanyi. After comparing for a while, nothing came out because the picture became a little blurry. She simply didn't want to think about it anymore, got up, got a set of pajamas, and went into the bathroom to take a shower. She was too tired, and the thought just now made her even more tired, and her head seemed to still have the pain from before. After taking a bath, she was made lazy by the hot water. She threw herself on the bed, turned off the light and covered herself with the quilt, and fell asleep soon after. A quiet night. The next day, Wei Yuxian slept until she woke up naturally. She had nothing to do today, so she could sleep as long as she wanted. After washing and going downstairs, she only saw her grandma and Aunt Fu chatting in the living room. The voice was a bit quiet. She was far away and didn't hear what they were talking about. Fu's mother was facing the stairs. As soon as Wei Yuxian got downstairs, she saw it, stopped talking about it, and said, "Eucalyptus is awake." Grandma turned to look and waved to Wei Yuxian. Wei Yuxian walked over and asked, "What's wrong, Grandma?" Grandma pulled her to sit down and asked, "How did you sleep last night?" "I slept well, the quilt was very soft, and I felt full," Wei Yuxian said. "I'm just hungry." "Let's go, Grandma will accompany you to have breakfast." Grandma pulled her up and walked to the dining table. Fu's mother also stood up and said, "Auntie will accompany you there too." Not long after sitting down at the dining table, Aunt Fu brought the breakfast with her servants and said, "Miss, please have breakfast." "Thanks." Wei Yuxian looked at the living room while eating breakfast. When she realized that they were the only ones in the living room, she asked, "Grandma, where are Dad and brother?" "They went to work on company matters." The two of them couldn't sit still for a moment, and wanted to get the company back on track as soon as possible, so they went to work early on the second day after arriving here. Fu's mother also said, "Actuan has also gone to work. He has been out for so many days, and he will be busy enough when he comes back. Although Father Fu can also manage the company here, he is old after all and what he can manage is limited. Now that Fu Xuanyi is back, he naturally wants to deal with some backlogged matters quickly so that the company can operate normally as soon as possible. Mr. Fu is not young, and there are many things waiting for him to deal with. I'm afraid he won't be able to do it if he doesn't work for a few days." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 267. Wei Yuxian nodded and said, "Oh," and said, "Dad and brother are working too hard." After breakfast, she said, "Grandma, I want to go to school tomorrow." "Why are you in such a hurry? You can rest for 2 more days. You can go to school after you have had enough rest." "We are not in a hurry." Grandma felt sorry for her that she had just arrived here and had to go to school before she could adjust her schedule. "They don't lack this little time, but they must not damage their bodies." "It's okay, Grandma. I don't have anything to do at home anyway, so I might as well go to school early and learn more." Taking advantage of the fact that school has just started, she can still catch up on the progress of going to class now. "Can your body hold up? Don't force yourself." "It's really okay, Grandma, I can do it." Grandma stopped persuading her and said, "That's okay. If you want to go, then go. As long as we are happy." "Thank you, Grandma." Wei Yuxian stayed at home bored all day, and when she went back to her room at night, she didn't see Fu Xuanyi. The next day, she was woken up by the alarm clock. There was a class in the first period in the morning, so she had to get up early and rush to school. She shook her unconscious head, and after a while, a smile appeared on her face. "She is going to school today. It's your first day of school, don't be late." Wei Yuxian was full of energy. After washing, she went downstairs, sat down at the dining table, and greeted the people at the table. After looking around, I found that someone was missing Fu Xuanyi. Did he not wake up or go to work at the company? With such doubts, she ate her breakfast. After eating half of it, she asked with some embarrassment, "Auntie, where did Mr. Fu go?" "Actuan went to the company early in the morning. He has been busy these past few days. I don't know what's wrong with this kid. He went so early and worked overtime until so late at night. Doesn't his body want it anymore? No matter how busy you are, you still have to have some control." Wei Yuxian said oh and didn't ask any more questions. She felt a little strange. She had clearly said in her heart that she would keep a distance from Mr. Fu, but she was not used to not being able to see him for so long. Could it be that she wrongly blamed Mr. Fu? Wei Yuxian didn't think about it anymore. After finishing breakfast, she asked the driver to take her to school. Because of Wei Yuxian's amnesia and her unwillingness to have bodyguards with her, the Fu family could only arrange for bodyguards to secretly protect her, including the former Lu Chang, Kong Ali. They would keep a certain distance from Wei Yuxian and protect her silently. If there are blind people who dare to bully her, then don't blame them for taking action. "When I go to school, everything is strange, the surrounding environment is strange, the classmates are also strange, and even the teacher is strange." However, Wei Yuxian didn't feel any discomfort. After entering the classroom, she saw that there were still seats in the back row, so she walked over and sat down. After sitting down, she realized where she was sitting. It was very far back. Her mind went blank for a short time. She felt something was wrong, and she felt that this was how it should be. Later, she stopped worrying, took out her textbook, and waited for the teacher to enter the classroom. Several bodyguards were also sitting in the classroom, not far from Wei Yuxian. There were several bodyguards outside the classroom, as well as in the school. This time, they didn't want anything to happen to Wei Yuxian, and they couldn't let anything happen to her. They didn't dare to let Wei Yuxian get any more stimulation, even just a little bit. After Wei Yuxian sat down, a classmate who came from behind entered the classroom and found her while looking for a seat. After sitting down, she started gossiping with the people around her. Wei Yuxian finally came to school and is sitting in the back. It's good to have a rich husband. You can come to school whenever you want. You don't have to worry at all. Yes, why can't I find a husband like this? If I had a husband like this, why would I go to school? I would have been nourishing my young mistress at home. You all keep your voices down, don't let her hear you. The last person who provoked her, Master Xian, killed him to the bone. Hey, who is Wei Yuxian? Why do you all know each other? No, you don't even know who Wei Yuxian is. Did your family just get access to the internet? Wei Yuxian stayed at school for several days, and nothing happened. No classmates took the initiative to say hello to her, and no one sat next to her. It made her wonder if she was a heinous person in the past, otherwise why wouldn't her classmates play with her? However, if you don't want to follow, just don't follow. A few times, she overheard a few girls chatting. They secretly said bad things about others behind their backs, and the words they said were unpleasant. If she was asked to be friends with such a person, she would rather have no friends. This day was another normal day of class. Wei Yuxian stayed at home for the weekend and slept for 2 days. The amazing thing is that she hasn't seen Fu Xuanyi for many days. Even when she was at home all day on weekends, she didn't have a chance to see him. Amazing. Wei Yuxian couldn't help but sigh. At the same time, I felt a little restless because I couldn't see him. It's so strange, it's so strange. When she could see people before, she wouldn't be like this. She sat absent-mindedly in the back row, and there was still no one sitting next to her. Fu Xuanyi can't help but pop up in her mind. This thought reminded her of the teacher calling her name on the podium during class time, and she came back to her senses. At the same time, she was also shocked that she had thought about Fu Xuanyi for so long. Why is this so strange? Why? Wei Yuxian scratched her head and her face wrinkled. What are her lost memories? Who did she forget? Is there anyone you hate? Is there someone important? Is there someone you like? She couldn't figure it out. She couldn't figure it out, so she didn't force herself. She sighed and went to class without any distractions. After one class, Wei Yuxian stretched and yawned without getting up. The next class will be in this classroom, which saves her a trip. No one played with her or chatted with her. She could only take out her mobile phone to chat with her brother, but her brother was busy now and had no time to reply to her. So she turned around and went to chat with her grandma. After chatting for a while, she suddenly felt her eyes darken and someone came to her side. She thought someone was finally willing to be friends with her, so she looked up with some joy and saw a boy with red-tipped ears standing in front of her. The boy was very tall and handsome. He was holding a pink love letter in his hand and looked very nervous. After seeing himself looking up, he seemed to be even more nervous. He opened his mouth several times but no words came out. Wei Yuxian knew what he was going to say at a glance. With this look, what else was it if it wasn't a confession? She preemptively said, "Sorry, I don't like you." After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Ju Yi. Chapter 268. The boy's face instantly turned redder, and his hand holding the love letter became harder. He opened his mouth and said I for a long time, but couldn't say a word. The movement on their side was not small. There were many people coming and going during the class break. When they saw the excitement, they naturally stopped. Who is this guy? Not to mention he is handsome, but he seems to be a bit mentally ill. Yes, he actually dared to send a love letter to Wei Yuxian. My eyes were opened today. Good guy. Did this guy just transfer to another school or does he have a 2G network at home? He actually dares to steal his wife from Master Xian. I declare that this is the boldest person I have seen this year. Soon this brother will be famous in the campus forum. Why didn't you tell him when the village was connected to the internet? This is Wei Yuxian. How dare he? Wei Yuxian is so good looking, let alone him. I like him when I see him, but I don't have the guts to compete with Master Xian for my wife. Do you have any kind-hearted people? Who will tell that handsome boy that Wei Yuxian is Master Xian's wife? Everyone shook their heads. I don't dare, go ahead. I'm just a spectator. It's a pity that I don't have enough melon seeds, otherwise I would enjoy the show better. Brother, please wish for yourself. I don't know what Master Xian will think when he finds out this news. I'm a little curious about how many days Wei Yuxian will take leave this time. With Master Xian's possessiveness, I guess Wei Yuxian will have to take 3 days off. I guess in 2 days, Master Xian will have some sense of proportion. You are all too low, I guess a week. Should we just have a second child this time? Everyone ate the melon in a low voice, not daring to speak too loudly for fear of being heard by Wei Yuxian. The bodyguard who had been sitting in the classroom was always paying attention to the situation on Wei Yuxian's side and secretly moved a little closer to her. At the same time, he also gave a signal to the bodyguards outside to keep them ready. Don't be afraid of 10,000, just be afraid of the worst. Madam can't let anything happen to her again. Wei Yuxian saw that the boy couldn't say a complete sentence for a long time, so she said, "Classmate, I'm sorry, I won't accept your love letter." The boy took a deep breath and finally said the first sentence, asking her, "Why? Do you have someone you like?" As soon as the words came out, Wei Yuxian was stunned for a while, because she didn't know either. Her heart told her that a very important person lived there, but her memory was blank and there was nothing. Therefore, she didn't know if there was anyone she liked among the people she forgot. She came back to her senses and said, "I'm sorry I can't answer you, but I can answer your question. I'm not interested in you." She refused very simply, without any sloppiness or any hope. But the boy still doesn't want to give up. He finally likes someone and finally musters up the courage to confess to someone. He doesn't want to give up so easily. Classmate, please think about it carefully. I really like you. It's okay for us to be friends first." After saying that, he thrust the love letter into Wei Yuxian's hand. He didn't even ask whether he agreed or not, he just said, "My contact information is in it," and left. Wei Yuxian stared blankly at the love letter in her hand. It was pink and tender, and smelled of perfume. It was full of romance. But when she looked at this love letter, she didn't feel any emotion in her heart. She even felt a little conflicted. When she came to her senses, the first thing she did was to get up, walk to the front of the classroom, and throw the love letter into the trash can, in full view of everyone. As for the boy just now, as soon as he walked out of the classroom, he was grabbed by some strange and kind-hearted people who asked him, "Handsome guy, do you like Wei Yuxian?" The boy's face was still red and he said, "So her name is Wei Yuxian. This name is really nice. Don't worry about whether her name sounds nice or not. Listen to my brother's advice. You can't catch this person." "Why can't I catch up?" "She has a boyfriend." The kind man shook his head. The boy was even more surprised. "Then why can't I catch him?" The kind person looked at him and shook his head helplessly and sighed, Because she is Wei Yuxian. She is Master Xian's wife. The boy looked shocked. She's married. Not only that, I have 2 children with Master Xian. I advise you not to appear in front of her again, otherwise Master Xian will not let you go. The boy stared blankly into the classroom and saw Wei Yuxian throwing his love letter into the trash can. He left with a complicated mood. In the classroom, after seeing that Wei Yuxian was not in danger, the bodyguards returned to their positions and sat on standby, while asking the bodyguards outside to return to their original positions. Lu Cheng took out his cell phone and told Fu Xuanyi what happened just now. These days, he would report everything that happened to Wei Yuxian to Fu Xuanyi, and he did not dare to hide what happened today. In the company, Fu Xuanyi went out early in the morning and came back late to deal with matters. He finally solved the backlog of matters over the past few days and could start the early shift today. He put his hands on the table and rubbed his tingling temples. After rubbing it for a while, his phone sounded a message notification. He stopped the massage and turned on his phone to read the message. After reading it, his face turned cold. It seems that his obedience is still so popular. If those people take advantage of Guigui's amnesia and sneak in. Thinking of this, Fu Xuanyi's expression became even more frighteningly cold. He gave Lu Cheng a hum reply and went to massage his temples again. It seems that tonight, I have to declare my sovereignty. At school, Wei Yuxian didn't take the boy's confession to heart just now, and sat in a daze. She began to try to think about her lost memories again and see if there was anyone she liked. If so, was this person Fu Xuanyi? After thinking about it for a while, my brain didn't hurt, my memory went blank, and I couldn't remember anything. She sighed in frustration, and took advantage of the break to play some games to pass the time. What happened just now was at best a minor episode and had no impact on her life. She would have to live her life the same way in the future. I just didn't expect that there would be a lot of incidents today. At noon, Wei Yuxian had lunch in the school cafeteria. She packed a portion of spicy hot pot that her classmates loved and returned to her dormitory. She started eating it with great anticipation, and in the end she even drank up the soup base. The malatang selections are all her favorite foods, and with the delicious soup base, it doesn't taste too delicious. After lunch, she took a comfortable nap. There was no class in the first period in the afternoon, so she slept as much as she could. After getting up, it was still not time for class. She was idle and played with her mobile phone for a while. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 269. When there were 20 minutes left for class, she was already dressed, packed her bag and was ready to go out to class. It's boring to be in the dormitory anyway, so it's better to go out early and get a good seat. Although she didn't desert much in class, she didn't want to sit in the front seat now. She took the driver's car to the teaching building and entered the classroom. There was no one there. She was the first one, so she chose to sit in the last row without hesitation. Fortunately, her eyesight is very good, so she can see clearly even if she is sitting in the last row. Otherwise, she would have to sit in the front. As soon as she sat down, classmates came into the classroom, a few girls. They glanced at Wei Yuxian, and then sat down in the row in front of her, but there was still some distance between them. One after another, many students came into the classroom, and everyone unanimously chose the seat at the back first. Some even helped their roommates to choose their seats. Wei Yuxian is immersed in her mobile phone. She is obsessed with reading novels these days, like the kind where a domineering president falls in love with me, very addictive. But she's not particularly addicted yet, at least she won't watch it during class. Although novels are good to read, She feels that studying is more important and she cannot delay studying just because of reading novels. It's okay to take a look during your break and pass the time. It's time to get ready for class. The closer it is to class time, the more out of breath the students come to the classroom. It looks like they have sprinted over hundreds of miles away. The teacher didn't know what was going on today and didn't come to the classroom until class was about to begin. The students were happy that he didn't come, just to catch more fish. With 1 minute left in class, several girls walked in from the back door of the classroom. The leading girl glanced at the packed classroom, with only the front seats left. She glanced at the girl next to her and asked, "Didn't you ask someone to reserve a seat?" The girl looked at the leading woman in blue with a guilty conscience and said, "I overslept and forgot." The woman in blue had a ball of anger in her heart, and looked at the classroom again, and suddenly saw that there was only one girl sitting in the last row of the classroom, and there were a few empty seats beside her. After counting, there were exactly 5 people even where the girl was sitting, and there were exactly 5 of them. "Okay, let's pick this little white rabbit to start with." The woman in blue and several girls walked to Wei Yuxian's side aggressively and said in a stern tone, "Hey, get up." As soon as the words came out, the whole classroom became quiet, and everyone looked behind. Some people couldn't help but take a deep breath when they saw that these girls dared to pick on Wei Yuxian. There seemed to be a lot of blind people today. There was another good show to watch, but unfortunately it still lacked a handful of melon seeds. When Wei Yuxian heard the commotion, she raised her head and saw that the girls showed no stage fright at all and said, "I'm sorry, I sat down first. You can go to another seat." She felt a little strange, because this was the first time someone had come to trouble her, and it was also the second student who paid attention to her after so many days since she came to school. The first one is the boy in the morning. The woman in blue obviously didn't recognize Wei Yuxian. She just thought the girl looked familiar, but didn't know who it was. She didn't think much, clasped her hands in front of her chest, but still couldn't pull it, and said, "You know better, hurry up, I don't want to do it in the classroom." Wei Yuxian would not take the initiative to cause trouble, but she was not afraid of it. Now the only seats left in the classroom were at the front, and she did not want to sit in the front. Besides, she sat down in the seat first, and these people took the remaining 4 seats. She wouldn't say anything, but if she was asked to get up, that wouldn't work. "I came first, first come, first served. You should understand this, classmate." At this time, the school bell rang, and the woman in blue said impatiently, "You can't hear me when I tell you to get up, right? I don't have the patience to listen to all the nonsense you say." Her tone was so arrogant. The students around her couldn't help but take a breath when they heard her arrogant tone. This man is so brave. Dare you speak to Wei Yuxian in such a tone? Die, I'm afraid this person won't have to see the sun tomorrow." Lu and Cheng looked at each other, stood up, walked behind Wei Yuxian, and stared at the girls. The woman in blue didn't panic at all when she saw them coming. There were 5 of them, but there were only 4 on the opposite side. It was not certain who would win in the fight. "I'm just telling you, where do you get the confidence? Are these just these people?" the woman in blue said disdainfully. "I'll say it again, get up, do you know who my dad is?" Lu Cheng frowned, wondering if this woman had lost her mind and actually mentioned her identity in front of their wife. "Their wife, that is Master Xian's wife? My mother's family is the Jones family of country E. What qualifications does this person have to discuss his identity in front of his wife?" He said, "Miss, please stay away from our young lady." The woman in blue narrowed her eyes and said, "What if, I don't want to? I just want to sit in this position. My dad is the leader of the Fu group. Can you afford to offend the Fu group?" Lu Cheng just wanted to laugh after hearing this. "Your father is the leader of the Fu group, and their Mr. Xian is also the person in charge of the Fu group. A small team leader is not even qualified to meet their master Xian. There are people outside the world, and there is a sky outside the sky. As soon as he spoke, the woman in blue reached out impatiently, grabbed Wei Yuxian's clothes, and pulled her up. Wei Yuxian reacted quickly, grabbed her hand and said, "Don't touch me. I just touched you." The woman in blue was stronger. Wei Yuxian couldn't let go of her hand, so she pushed her and her lower back hit the chair hard, causing pain. This collision caused not only a problem with my waist, but also my brain went into a trance and began to hurt. The pain in her head was far greater than that in her waist. She covered her head and sat down on the chair. She grabbed her head with both hands, and her fingers turned white. All this happened in an instant. The woman in blue moved so fast that even if Lu Cheng had reacted in time, he still couldn't stop it. Seeing Wei Yuxian's accident, Lu Cheng and the other three were heartbroken. They immediately went to stop the woman in blue and pinned her down on the table. "What are you doing? Do you know who I am? Why don't you guys come and help me?" the woman in blue said angrily. The other four girls were subdued by a Kong and a Li. At the same time, the bodyguards from outside also rushed in and completely controlled the person. Lu Chengkong took action and said sullenly to the woman in blue, "You're dead." Then he took out his mobile phone and sent a message to Fu Xuanyi. A Kong and a Li also took this opportunity to sit down next to Wei Yuxian and carefully check on her condition. After getting pregnant, the celibate Buddhist fiercely dotes on his beloved wife. Author, Zhu Yi. Chapter 270. Fu Xuanyi was on his way to pick up Wei Yuxian when he received the message from Lu Cheng. He finished handling the company's affairs early today and planned to go to school early to meet his Guaiguai. Even if Guaiguai ignored him, it wouldn't be a problem. Just when he was still 10 minutes away from school, he received a message from Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng told him what happened just now in simple language, and then asked, "Master Xian, how do you want to deal with it?" Fu Xuanyi replied with a dark face, "Wait for me." Lu Cheng put down his mobile phone and looked at the situation. The classroom was almost full of students. The teacher didn't come for a long time. He didn't know what was the reason for the delay. The woman in blue was still yelling curses, and the insults were very harsh in the classroom. The other girls didn't dare to speak out, they just kept shouting about the pain. After a Kong and a Li let go, several other tall male bodyguards held them down. They were very powerful and would not be as scrupulous as a Kong and a Li. Several girls just felt like their bones were being crushed. How could they care about anything else? Lu Cheng felt that these people were too noisy here, and his wife's condition was not optimistic. She kept holding her head and didn't know where she was injured. "You take the person out first and hand it over to the second master. Let's see how the second master handles it." He had just sent a message not only to Master Xian, but also to the second master, who was also on his way. The second master is better at dealing with people. I believe these people will not reap any good fruits in the hands of the second master. The students below watched several girls being taken away and the classroom returned to silence, and they all took a deep breath inwardly. Hiss. Dead, these girls are dead. Why are you so blind? At this moment, the monitor of a certain class took a look at the school's official website and found out that the teacher of this class had been rescheduled to tomorrow. But for some unknown reason, the school leader did not notify them in place, so their trip was in vain. The squad leader was hesitant to tell the news. After all, it seemed that it was not suitable to talk in this situation. After 2 seconds, she took a deep breath and said in a relatively low voice, "The teacher has adjusted the class, everyone can go." As soon as the students heard this, they quickly packed up their things and left the classroom quietly without daring to make any big noise. In this situation, they had better leave as soon as possible. Who knows what might happen to Wei Yuxian later, they don't want to be blamed by Master Xian. After leaving the classroom, the students began to complain that the school's notifications were not in place, causing them to run away in vain. In the classroom, Wei Yuxian was still covering her head. She couldn't hear what the people around her were saying, she just felt that her head was about to explode. She is experiencing pain that she has never experienced before. Lu Cheng and the other two looked at her worriedly, but they didn't know what to do. In Madam's current situation, they don't dare to move easily. If something bad happens, they all won't have to live. Ah Kong couldn't stop walking around and asked, "What did Master Xian say? What should we do now?" "Lu Cheng, Master Xian is on his way, let's not act rashly." Waiting in agony, Wei Yuxian's head hurt more and more, tears fell down, and she lay down on the table, looking extremely pitiful. "Here," Fu Xuanyi replied to the message and asked the driver to speed up. The 10-minute journey was shortened by half. After entering the campus unimpeded and arriving in front of the teaching building, Fu Xuanyi opened the door without a moment's hesitation and looked for the classroom with a dark face. "After searching for a few minutes, I finally found the classroom where Wei Yuxian was." As soon as he entered the classroom, his eyes fell on the person lying on the table. My heart was clenched hard. Master Xian, when Lu Cheng and the others saw him, they breathed a sigh of relief, as if they had seen a savior. Fu Xuanyi ignored them and strode forward to Wei Yuxian's side. When he heard her crying, his heart ached even more. "Be good." After calling out and receiving no response, he stretched out his hand, picked up Wei Yuxian, and walked outside. Wei Yuxian's head hurt even more after being tortured like this, and she cried even louder. Fu Xuanyi looked at her pale face and the 2 lines of tears hanging on her face, and he wanted to kill someone. Fu Xuanyi walked out, and Lu Cheng and the others quickly followed, waiting for instructions. After getting in the car, Fu Xuanyi immediately told the driver to go to the nearby hospital as quickly as possible. When the driver saw the situation, he stepped on the accelerator to the bottom. Wei Yuxian was still leaning on Fu Xuanyi. This position was not very comfortable. She was in a daze, crying out in pain, while kneeling on Fu Xuanyi's lap, hugging his neck, and her whole body was shrinking into his arms. Inside. "It hurts, my head, it hurts so much." Fu Xuanyi put his hand on her back, wanting to pat her back to comfort her, but seeing how bad her headache was, he didn't dare to act rashly. "Be good, bite me if it hurts." Wei Yuxian was particularly unconscious, and the words she heard were not very complete. Her brain only received the words "bite me." What caught her eye was Fu Xuanyi's neck, so she bit it down without hesitation. A stinging pain came, and Fu Xuanyi clenched his hand on his side, but did not push Wei Yuxian away and endured her strength. Like a mean kitten. After Wei Yuxian bit Fu Xuanyi, she felt that her head really didn't hurt anymore, so she relaxed her mouth, changed her position, and took another bite. A few minutes later, Fu Xuanyi's neck was wet and covered with teeth marks from Wei Yuxian's bite. The skin was not broken, but it left traces, plum blossom marks. At this time, Wei Yuxian finally calmed down and stopped crying out in pain. She hugged Fu Xuanyi, her strength getting tighter and tighter, her body still trembling a little, and she called in his ear, "Axuan." She remembered everything, all the lost memories came back at this time. Only now did she realize that she had forgotten something. She forgot about her most annoying adoptive father's family, Ding Nana and others who bullied her, Fu Xuanyi who loved her, Fu's father, Fu's mother, and their babies. Important and annoying, all forgotten. Fortunately, she remembered it now, and those beautiful memories belonging to her and Fu Xuanyi were finally back. Fu Xuanyi also stiffened, turned to look at her, his Adam's apple rolled, and said, "Good boy, you." Before she could finish speaking, Wei Yuxian's lips were blocked. She closed her eyes and kissed Fu Xuanyi's thin lips. The lips were as cold as his own, but extremely soft and tasted great. I haven't tasted it for a long time.